Okay, so this is part number 6. What about other prophylactic things? There's this thing called Coldzyme, which is a nasal spray, has some trypsin, which has been studied back in 2004 against SARS-CoV-1. Apparently it has a deactivation of the current SARS-CoV-2 of 98.3% according to the company. It's supposed to basically you spray it and it goes back in the oropharynx and it decreases the risk of the virus getting into the trachea. Enzymatica is the company. Back in July when they marketed it, the stocks jumped, but I haven't heard of any studies with it so far. What about other things in the prophylactic realm? Well, ibuprofen actually was thought perhaps to make things worse, but the FDA has stated that it's not aware of any scientific evidence connecting the use of ibuprofen and worsening COVID symptoms. Here is one example of a study of 400 plus patients where they looked at NSAID use, ibuprofen use 1 week before, and they saw that 22% were using ibuprofen, and they didn't really observe any difference in mortality rates or the need for respiratory support. This study in Israel. RAS inhibition. The ACE inhibitors in general are more commonly seen in patients with COVID because hypertension is a risk factor, but it doesn't necessarily imply causation. And in this large population-based study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the use of ACE inhibitors and ARBs were more frequent, but did not show that it affected the risk. Another population-based study, 12,594 patients, and again, no substantially increased risk of likelihood of COVID or severe COVID if they had any specific of the antihypertensive medicines. Recombinant ACE2, again, targeting that ACE2 makes sense because that's how the virus gets into the cell. They have one clinical trial now by this company, Apeiron Biologics, 200 participants, looking at the recombinant human ACE2 levels of treatment for patients with COVID-19. So let's go through some of the questions. Which of the following is used potentially as a zinc ionophore? Iodine, vitamin C, quercetin, nitric oxide. The answer is quercetin. Which of the following may have prophylactic benefit? Iodine washes, nitric oxide nasal spray, smoking, vitamin D supplementation. The answer is all of the above. Which of the following is false? Advil not associated with worse COVID outcomes. ACE inhibitors more commonly seen in COVID patients. Current smoking is a risk factor for COVID. Well, ACE inhibitors are more commonly seen in COVID patients. It's true because they're more likely hypertensive. Current smoking is not a risk factor for COVID. It might actually be protective. So the next, that was part 6.